My wife kept threatening me with divorce over every little argument. It reached a point where I finally agreed and walked away. My wife and I have been together for 5 years, married for 4. We had known each other for years before, and we have a 4-year-old daughter. I've been the primary breadwinner since she chose to be a stay-at-home mom. For the past year and a half, we've been arguing several times a month. I want to make it clear that I've always helped out with our daughter. I cook, clean, and stay involved with both of them. The first time she mentioned divorce was during an argument about my sister. My sister called me because she was having relationship issues and asked if she could stay with us for a while. I said yes, but my wife wasn't happy about it. I reminded her that just a few months earlier, her own friend had stayed with us for 5 weeks. Her friend didn't contribute in any way. She just showed up one day without any discussion. My sister, on the other hand, has a great relationship with our daughter, and I thought my wife was fond of her too. My sister only stayed with us for a week and spent that time helping out by cooking, cleaning, and watching our daughter whenever we needed her. I thought we had moved on and forgiven each other after that argument, but we kept having fights. Most of the time, the arguments were over small things, and I wasn't the one starting them. I've suggested therapy and counseling multiple times, but my wife always insisted she didn't need it. Last night I reached my breaking point. She started an argument saying I spent too much time at work and that she felt abandoned. Then she said I wasn't a good father and ended her rant by demanding a divorce. I stood up and told her the only reason I work so much is to support her and our daughter, especially since she refuses to get a job or go to school to contribute. She spends money on things we don't need or even use. I reminded her that I've always been there for our daughter, for her appointments, school events, and anything else she needs. But my wife still refused to get help through therapy or counseling. I told her I was done. I said I'd have my lawyer send her the divorce papers as soon as they were written up. I packed up my daughter's belongings and left. We've been staying with my sister for 2 days now. Since then, my wife has been calling and texting nonstop, saying she's sorry and didn't mean what she said. Now she wants to go to counseling and therapy. She says she misses me and needs me. I don't know what to do. I still love her. She's a good mother. But I can't live like this anymore. Update. Unfortunately, this isn't a happy update. I want to clarify some things that may have been missed. I don't regret taking my daughter with me. She is my priority, and I will always put her well-being first. I've always encouraged my wife to find a job, take up a hobby, or make new friends. I've tried to get her to see someone for help, but she's always refused. She kept saying she wasn't the problem. I make a point not to argue with my wife in front of our daughter. I grew up in a bad household, where my father would take his anger out on me after fights with my mother. I never want my daughter to go through that. I don't know what my wife might have done that night. But I know you can't force someone to get help. They have to want it. If you push someone, they'll only go through the motions to make it seem like they've changed. I know I'm not blameless in all of this, but I can't let my daughter grow up thinking this is how relationships are supposed to be. When I was younger, I promised myself I'd never become like my dad. Yet here I am in a situation I never wanted for my family. I decided long ago that I would never be like my father. After writing my last post, I had a lot to think about, and I knew I needed to make my wife understand how serious I was. We sat down, and I told her directly that I couldn't live like this anymore. I told her the fighting and threats of divorce had to stop. She agreed and promised not to bring it up again. I warned her that if she ever said it again, it would be the last time. We both agreed to start couples therapy. It was eye-opening. We talked about feelings we hadn't shared before and having an outside, professional perspective helped us understand each other better. After a few sessions, I thought we were improving. She started putting in more effort. She got a job, made some friends, and even found a hobby. But then another argument happened. We had plans that involved our daughter, but my wife overlooked them and made other plans with some of her new co-workers. She said she couldn't cancel her plans. By the end of the argument, she mumbled something under her breath. I asked her to repeat herself, and she said, "I knew marrying you was a mistake." I just stared at her, feeling like I didn't even know who she was anymore. The woman standing in front of me seemed like a stranger. Then she said, "I should have divorced you years ago." I didn't argue. I just walked away, took my daughter, and went ahead with our plans, just the two of us. After that, I filed for legal separation. The terms we agreed on were simple. We would remain legally married but wouldn't get involved with anyone else during the separation period. Our finances would be split, but the bills would stay the same. I would keep paying for her insurance through my work. Therapy sessions would continue, both as individuals and as a couple. I moved in with my sister, and we worked out a custody arrangement where I had our daughter 70% of the time. One day, while I had our daughter, I asked my wife to take her for a day. I let her know a week in advance, and she agreed. That morning, I went to drop my daughter off at the house. When I arrived, there was an unfamiliar car parked in the driveway. I figured it might be a friend or coworker. Out of respect, I rang the doorbell and waited. A shirtless man answered the door. He asked who I was and what I wanted. I told him I was there to see my wife. He called her, and she came to the door in a robe. Her expression went from curious to shocked, then horrified, and finally sad. That was it for me in 3 months. When the separation period ends, I'm filing for a divorce. My daughter is safe. She doesn't fully understand what's going on, except that her mommy and daddy aren't happy with each other. She is my priority, now and always. I know I've done the one thing I swore I'd never do. I've become what I promised myself I'd never be. I've ended up just like my parents. But there's nothing I can do to change it now. All I can hope for is to show my daughter how much I love her and raise her to be happy, healthy, and loved.